Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today is really laser focused on one of the most intellectually dramatic periods of life.
Oh, absolutely.
We're talking about the transformation of adolescent cognition, so roughly ages 11 to 18.
Right.
And if you're looking for a shortcut to truly understand the neurological wiring, the philosophical leaps, and the sudden new powers of logic that emerge,
And how it all plays
and
out.
how all of that chaos affects their world, especially school, well, you've come to the right place. We've consolidated the research on this.
From brain scans right through to academic debates.
Yeah, exactly.
And what we're looking at here isn't just, slow and steady growth.
No.
This is a fundamental cognitive overhaul. I think the most important distinction is this movement from a worldview that is, well, totally dominated by egocentrism,
Where the self is the center of the universe.
the absolute center.
Uh,
And they move from that to a capacity for abstract logic and hypothetical thought.
and it's not just like a switch flips at age 13, is it? It's a messy process.
It is entirely messy. The sources confirm that this leap is driven by this powerful combination of maturing brain structures, yes, but also
All the outside stuff.
all the outside stuff, the
That's-
intense social pressure, the moral challenges they face, the structure of schooling, and maybe most importantly, that rapidly increasing demand for independence.
So all those forces kind of compel the mind to reorganize itself.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's unpack this then. We should probably start right where this overhaul begins, with that unique and frankly often stressful adolescent perspective.
Mhm.
Before they can use formal logic like a philosopher, they're often sort of locked in what feels like a constant reality TV show starring themselves.
That's a great way to put it. This intense self-focus, it's called adolescent egocentrism.
And it just dominates their whole cognitive landscape for a time.
It does.
They're thinking obsessively about themselves and, crucially, what they think everyone else is thinking about them.
And this self-focus, it shows up in a few defining ways. The first is what the research calls the imaginary audience.
The imaginary audience.
Yeah, it's this deep-seated belief that they are constantly being watched, judged, and either, intensely admired or intensely disliked by everyone.
Far more than they actually are.
Oh, far more.
Yeah.
It means every slight, every glance, every conversation they aren't a part of is somehow interpreted as a personal judgment.
Everything literally feels like a critique of their entire existence. That must be exhausting.
It is, and it fuels the second manifestation, which is rumination.
Okay.
This is thinking obsessively about a single thing. It could be a past embarrassing moment or a conversation they wish they'd handled differently, or even just a future fantasy.
To the point where it just captures the mind completely.
Completely.
So if they, say, a trip in the hallway, they don't just move on. They're mentally replaying that fall, frame by frame, wondering what the imaginary audience thought of their clumsiness.
Precisely. And that intensity feeds directly into the well-known fables.
Right, the fables.
First, there's the personal fable. This is the belief that their thoughts, their feelings, their experiences are absolutely unique.
No one understands my pain.
Exactly. Nobody understands their love. Nobody understands their pain. Their experience is fundamentally more wonderful or more awful than anyone else's in history.
And the most dangerous extension of that is the invincibility fable.
Yes.
The conviction that they're somehow immune to harm, to consequences that get normal mortals.
We usually link this to the classic risk behaviors.
High-speed driving, unprotected sex, drug use, all of that.
Right. But that traditional view that egocentrism is what drives this reckless risk-taking is actually being challenged by newer research.
Oh, that's a surprising insight.
It is.
How so? I mean, if they feel invincible, shouldn't they take more risks?
Well, while physical invincibility is obviously dangerous, the research suggests that adolescents who feel psychologically invincible,
Okay.
so those who believe their thoughts and feelings grant them a unique inner strength, they tend to be more resilient.
Resilient.
Yes. That sense of unique capacity might actually buffer them against certain emotional or psychological challenges rather than just leading them to bad behavior.
Ah, so it's a key distinction, psychological strength versus, physical danger.
Exactly.
That's fascinating. So we shouldn't necessarily try to crush that sense that they're special.
No.
We just need to reframe where that specialness applies.
Exactly right. Now, to break free from this perpetual drama of the self, the mind needs a new tool. It needs logic,
Right.
which brings us to Piaget's fourth and final stage, formal operational thought.
This is the capacity for systematic logic.
And, crucially, the ability to think about abstract ideas.
And I mean, this is where it gets really interesting, right? The ability to think hypothetically.
Yes.
They're no longer bound by what is concrete and right in front of them. Now they can conceive of what could be.
This hypothetical thought involves reasoning, using propositions and
Right.
possibilities that,
Well, that may not reflect current reality.
so they can consider counterfactuals, like
Right.
what if X had happened instead of Y? Exactly.
Yeah.
And this fundamentally changes their perception of rules, of morality, even of their parents.
Because they can now imagine a better, fairer system.
Precisely. This hypothetical power introduces two distinct modes of reasoning they now have to wrestle with.
Okay.
So children, the concrete operational thinkers, they rely on inductive reasoning. It's bottom up.
They start with specific facts, personal experiences, and then they slowly work toward a general conclusion. Their lived experience is everything.
It is. And the sources point out that an adolescent's nimble mind can rationalize so many specifics.
Oh, yes. Yes, Dad. I know you said I can't go out tonight, but this one party is different because X, Y, and Z reasons are unique to my situation.
Exactly that.
Okay.
The conclusion is often only reached when the evidence is overwhelmingly inescapable. That's the limitation of bottom-up thinking.
So what's the next step?
The true advanced step is mastering deductive reasoning, or top-down reasoning.
Okay, top down.
Here, the process starts with a general statement, a premise, or an abstract principle. Something like, all people should be treated equally, or justice should be blind.
And then they use logical steps to figure out the specifics from there.
Yes, the principle is the starting point, not the end point.
Ah, I see why this is so critical. If they start with that abstract principle, let's say fairness, that principle becomes the starting point.
Right.
So they can now challenge an arbitrary rule just by pointing out how it violates this big abstract principle of fairness. This is why arguments suddenly get much more complex.
And much more challenging for the adults dealing with them.
Yes.
That is the so what of deductive thought.
Yeah.
It lets them systematically deconstruct the world based on ideals they haven't personally experienced yet.
So they have this incredible new logic processing power, but, the sources make it clear that logic isn't always the operating system they're using.
Not at all.
They're running two modes of thought at the same time, and the intuitive one often wins the day.
Often does.
Let's talk about this dual processor. First, you have intuitive thought.
Hmm.
This just bubbles up from an emotion or a hunch. It's often beyond rational explanation, driven by, cultural assumptions or gut feelings.
And we contrast that with analytic thought. This is the heavy lifting.
It's a systematic process.
Yes, of evaluating evidence, ranking pros and cons, assessing risks and consequences, and forming conclusions strictly based on logic and rational data.
And the key developmental challenge is that adolescents tend to rely far more heavily on that quick, intuitive thinking than adults do.
They do.
Mm-hmm.
And making a rational analytic judgment is incredibly difficult when those strong egocentric emotions, that feeling of being watched, the personal fable, are dominating their attention.
It sounds like a car with one foot on the gas and the other hovering over a really unreliable brake.
That analogy is perfect, actually, because it's based on the real brain science of dual processing.
Okay.
At puberty, the limbic system, that's the part of the brain for emotion and critically for sensation seeking, it gets activated rapidly.
So that's the accelerator flooring it.
That's the accelerator. But the brakes, the part that regulates impulse,
That's the problem.
that is the prefrontal cortex. It's the area for impulse control, planning, formal analytic thought.
Mm-hmm.
And it matures so much more gradually.
We see that development continue well into the early 20s, right?
You do.
Okay.
And that time lag is the neurological explanation for so much teenage risk.
The desire for new sensations and emotional intensity is fully active.
But the system that's designed to weigh risks and apply caution is still, well, under construction.
Right.
The adolescent brain just receives significantly fewer biological signals of caution or inhibition compared to a fully mature adult brain.
So they perceive risk differently.
And they actively seek out the intensity from that newly activated limbic system. And this, incidentally, will help us understand that final thought we'll leave you with later.
The relationship between sensation seeking and impulsivity. So let's connect this cognitive chaos to the structure that's designed to organize it. The classroom. We're now talking secondary education, ages 12 to 18.
And that includes those foundational middle school years.
It's a huge challenge.
It is. The educational system is designed to leverage these new cognitive powers. But often, especially in, say, college-bound high school courses,
They just assume the students can already do it.
they just assume the student has mastered formal operational thinking.
Yeah.
Instead of teaching them how to use deductive logic, They jump straight into complex content that requires it.
And this assumption really highlights the problem with standardized testing. I mean, we focus so heavily on high-stakes tests.
Tests that determine graduation, promotion, placement.
And the criticism is pretty compelling, isn't it?
It is. These tests often incentivize teachers to focus on rote memorization,
Teaching to the test.
preparing students to be good fact reciters, rather than teaching them essential 21st century skills.
Like how to analyze complex problems, synthesize facts, how to spot misinformation, fake news.
Or how to actually imagine and propose new solutions.
It's telling, you know? Even with this decades-long focus on testing, our sources note that standardized scores, like for the SAT, have remained essentially flat.
Neither rising nor falling significantly.
Which may be one reason why so many universities are now making the SAT and ACT optional.
To get a truly global snapshot of whether students are applying these cognitive skills, we can turn to the PISA.
The Program for International Student Assessment.
Right, and this isn't a history or math test. It's a measure of problem solving and cognition in daily life for 15-year-olds across 50 nations.
And globally, U.S. students consistently score worse on the PISA than on other benchmarks that measure specific curriculum knowledge.
Things like Carroll's or Tim's, yeah.
Which suggests a real struggle with applied daily problem solving.
And if we look at the high PISA achievers globally, we don't just see high funding.
No.
We see systems that prioritize learning across the board, systems where every stakeholder, from parents to administrators, genuinely values education.
Where learning is more individualized.
And where standards are high and clear, and crucially, where teachers and administrators are highly valued and supported.
So, moving from the global system down to the individual learner, the concept of student engagement becomes pivotal.
Absolutely.
We noted earlier that puberty itself can contribute to disengagement.
Leading to the worst outcome. Students who quit school entirely and become status dropouts.
And that engagement is so tied to a student's internal psychological concept of their own intelligence.
Which brings us to mindset.
Okay, so students with a growth mindset, they believe their abilities can be developed through dedication, hard work.
They seek out challenges. They respond beautifully to the kind of teaching that requires that formal operational thinking you were talking about.
And the opposite.
Conversely, students with a fixed mindset believe intelligence is a static trait. They rely heavily on social comparison, constantly ranking themselves against their peers.
And the teacher's mindset matters here too, right?
Oh, it's equally important. If a teacher has a fixed mindset, they're more likely to attribute low student performance, not to curriculum design, but to the student's inherent intelligence or their family background.
And finally, we have to acknowledge this powerful outside factor that can just undermine engagement.
Especially in diverse classrooms.
Stereotype threat.
This is the internal thought a student has that their behavior or even their appearance will be misread by others to confirm some pre-existing prejudice stereotype.
It must be an enormous cognitive load.
Huge.
So if a student anticipates, say, racial or gender bias, that anticipation makes them hypervigilant.
Yes, and they might perceive a totally neutral piece of teacher feedback as disrespectful or unfair.
Which instantly floods their system with stress hormones and emotions.
And that hijacks their analytic thinking and severely disrupts their ability to learn in that moment. It's a massive barrier.
It creates a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It does. Teachers have to be incredibly deliberate about how they deliver corrective feedback to avoid triggering that response.
So, what does this all mean? We've traced this journey from the deeply self-centered, intensely dramatic phase of egocentrism.
Which surprisingly can foster resilience.
Right, to the monumental, world-changing leap to abstract hypothetical thinking. We've mapped how this cognitive revolution is constrained by the physical reality of a slowly maturing prefrontal cortex.
The accelerator and the brakes.
And we've seen how our educational systems try to measure and harness this whole messy, chaotic transformation.
I think the takeaway for you is this. Understanding that battle between the intuitive emotional impulse and the slow-developing analytical capacity is absolutely essential for interpreting the decisions they make during these crucial years. It's not simply poor judgment.
No.
It is a developing brain managing new, powerful emotional inputs without the full neurological capacity for caution yet in place.
And finally, a provocative thought for you to consider, building on the brain development findings we discussed today. Remember how the sources noted that sensation-seeking, the desire for thrilling experiences, it just bursts right at puberty.
Yes.
But the slow decline of impulsivity, the ability to stop yourself, that occurs gradually over many, many years of
Right,
adolescence.
the two are out of sync.
They are. The important finding is that the decline in sensation seeking did not correlate with the decline in impulsivity. So the question is, why do these two major yet distinct aspects of risk behavior seem to operate on different individual timeframes rather than declining in sync?
That is something worth mulling over.
Thank you for sharing your sources for this deep dive.